Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Clausen, and I'm a piano performance master's student here at CCPA. And I am the Health and Wellness Manager for the CAL, the Center for Arts Leadership. Here with me is Savannah, our administrator. Sorry, what's your title?
Administrative director. It's okay.
That's
Say
what it's called.
it.
And Courtney, another member of the Health and Wellness team. And I will be interviewing two excellent professors we have here at CCPA, Winston Choi, head of the piano department, and MingHuan Chu, head of the strings department. So hi, both of you. Thank you for
Hello.
agreeing to do this.
Thank you for having us.
So I'll start with our first question, and then we can kind of go from there. How have you found health and wellness to be an important aspect of your career as performing professional musicians and teachers?
I think it's vitally important because we are in a profession that is so packed full of pressures. A lot of it is internal pressure, but of course, the external world exerts a tremendous amount of pressure. And that can really chip away at us, both in terms of our health, our physical health, and our mental well being. So, unless we're engaging with both of these facets on a very regular, almost daily basis, it has the pressures of this profession can feel like it's crushing us at times.
Well, I think that it's just amazing that you guys are even doing this. When we were students, we didn't do this. We never really talked about health and wellness, right? It just wasn't part of our education. We really wish that we did. So thank you for doing this. It's amazing. So to answer your question, I think it's so important and it's everything. It's becoming more and more important as we age. Now we're in our 40s and if we don't pay attention to our body, it just doesn't work. I mean, I know you guys are in your 20s and early 30s, and so I mean, if you had a couple of stressful weeks and you bounce back usually, but for us, we don't bounce back the same way. And so we really have to make sure that we take care of our body. Another thing is, because of modern medicine, we all live longer too these days, right? So that means our career is going to be longer too. Look at my violin teacher, Mrs. Vamos, and she, also is on faculty at CCPA. I studied with her when I was in Northwestern. She is 84 years old. She teaches 40 hours a week, and she manages to take care of her health in a way that she is really going strong. And look at our president, Joe Biden, right? He's what, 77, 78? So we have to think long term that, right now we're all doing quite well, but what about I still want to be able to play and perform and teach hopefully into my 70s and 80s. Now it's time to take care of our bodies and also mental health as well.
How do you do that? What strategies do you two use to keep yourselves healthy?
Oh, good question.
Well, I think in some ways, finding that uh, balance within life is really, really difficult because you have to constantly make time for something which doesn't seem like you have time for, right? So we often talk about how, life swings back and forth. There are certain stretches where we will be able to find more of that balance within our lives to be able to take care of ourselves properly, which means getting enough rest, eating healthy, having enough movement and exercise, as well as personal space. And then there will be stretches of the year when that's not possible because just simply the amount of time we have to spend to manage everything that's on our plate means all of that free time is much reduced. But if we don't find that time, if we don't swing back to it, if we don't have an end point, if there's not that little glimmer of light that we can say, hey, we have this weekend, we have this half day in order to take care of ourselves, we can run in this endless cycle and be somewhat stuck.
And also think about, I guess thinking and what you can do. For instance, when you think about mental health and physical health meaning the basic things you can do is to eat healthier and to sleep more, right? And then to move a little bit more. So that's the three areas that I think about. Now, eating healthier, it's for us not always practical because we have children. They don't want to always eat, salad. They want their pizzas and their mac and cheese. And so sometimes we do have to make sure that our children are not, deprived from that, from joy of eating. So it's more of just a balance, and to be conscious. I sometimes actually log in when I'm eating. I use this app, I on and off on my fitness pal, and sometimes I skip, but I just log in and take a look what I'm doing right now in terms of my diet. And I'm not very strict. I eat everything, but just kind of keep track of, okay, so I have had my fruits and vegetables, and I don't deprive my carbs. I do take my carbs, and hopefully more healthy ones, multigrain rice, and healthier bread and so on. And if I have a concert coming up, a stressful time, maybe I'll reduce my sugar just a little bit. So it's not so much, for the way I look and necessarily, I know these days we have so much pressure of the way we need to look. No, it's not for that. But it's more of it, when you eat a little bit less sugar, your muscles feel a little bit better. Maybe just instead of drinking regular coffee, drink some decaf coffee, which I'm not good at it. I wake up, I like my coffee, So sleep just a little bit more. We have our Fitbit, so we have the app that it tracks our sleep, and maybe instead of sleeping 6 hours, maybe like sleep 6 hours and 20 minutes. Just go to bed a little bit earlier. We sometimes don't have time to exercise. That's the honest truth. But we moved to South Loop recently, so we could walk to school. So in this case, we use walking as part of exercise. So sometimes I would walk actually fast. I would run a little bit, and maybe because I'm late too, So the running is more cardio, and it tracks me as that I exercise. So little things you can squeeze in to when you don't have time to sleep 10 hours, and when you don't have time really to plan your meals, just little things you do, it does make a difference.
Yeah, I feel like as students, we all feel like we're so busy, so we can't fit in these things. But it sounds like you're saying we just need to try on a regular basis to incorporate what we can, good habits.
Yes, absolutely. And that takes our next thing is for me that I'm personally, working on lower my standard too. Sometimes, I have the tendency of, being a perfectionist. If I'm not a perfect, I better not do it all together. So I feel like, and I have to kind of accept the fact that I'm not gonna be a fitness instructor. I'm not gonna be one of those, my friends and online, they look all buffed, they go to the gym all the time. I'm just not gonna, just not part of my life. And so for a while, we worked out more on a regular basis with personal trainers, but we can't do that these days because we have children. And so, but we do what we can. Like Caitlin, what you're saying, just little things instead of thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to achieve this X amount, in this area. But it counts. That's what we're learning too.
Yeah.
So,
And then from the aspect of mental health, I think there is somewhat of this feeling like that we embrace the busyness within our lives, just flipping that little switch instead of being overwhelmed by it, instead of feeling like it's just too much. You wake up and you're just flooded with a sense of dread because you can't possibly meet all your goals. But if you have this little kind of positive affirmations and this constant voice in your head that is saying to you, embrace the busyness, embrace how you have a full and rich life. And just exactly as MingHuan was saying, you let go of that feeling of perfection, which allows you to move on to accomplish more things within the day, right? Because this sense of perfection, sometimes we carve out a little bit of time for a thing, and that ends up doubling or tripling, and then we feel stressed because we couldn't get to all those other things. If we let go of that feeling of perfectionism and really try to get into the spirit of whatever it's doing, whether it's emails or practicing, or we just do a little bit of exercise. It's not enough to really get our heart racing, but it just feels like, okay, we just walked down the hallway. We went down 2 flights of steps. Things like that. All these little, small, very achievable goals, I think, can be things that we find some kind of joy and ride off of that.
Yeah, I feel like as musicians, a lot of us are perfectionists, wanting our music to be as good as it can be, but sometimes then we lose track of how much we enjoy it and how much we love it. And how do you still bring so much joy to music so many years down the line, even when you're so busy?
Good question, Caitlin. I think that it's, um, I think this is the years when you guys discover, like, you know, what, where your passion lies. You're already in music, and for me, I remember those years. I discovered, what I wanted to do in music and finding my own artistic voice, meaning that, I learned that I love playing chamber music and I love doing contemporary music. And back then I started teaching a little bit. I love teaching. And so, but being an orchestra, I remember that I never really, it wasn't really for me, but these are the years when you guys discover like what's for you, what's not. So the answers don't come right away, and it took me years and for me to figure out what I really enjoy. And so I think it's once that is found and you have this kind of purpose in life and passion for music. And it doesn't mean that there's no ups and downs. There'll be days when you just don't feel like doing it. I think when you're passionate about something, does not mean that you're crazy about it every day. And so when you have a downtime, like I don't feel like practicing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love music anymore. You're just in a kind of like a place that you need maybe you are overstressed or you're overplayed and you need a little rest, a mental break, but you come back to it. So I think then also teaching, be able to be with you guys, just like how much we learn from our students. It's you guys are inspiring, really. I mean, there are times when we don't feel like doing it. We see our students are going at it, and they come in, they prepare, and they're tired, and they're still there. And we feel like we want to be part of that too, So it's really both ways. We've often, every day, I would say, I'm inspired by my students, um, and by music as well, and curiosity. I'm always curious. I'm still curious. Maybe because my teachers that I've studied with, they're still curious. Mrs. Vamos is still curious, and she still go onto YouTube at the age of 84 and listening to all the version of Brahms sonatas that she's performing, and finding out things that she likes and things that she doesn't like, and changing her fingerings and bowings. And for me, that's extremely inspiring. She could be like, I've done this sonata for so many years, I don't have to know anymore. No, it's just curiosity, and when I'm teaching, they're very often, I don't know how you feel, they're like, wait a second, I want to know more about that. And I don't. I come home, I'll practice that piece too, like trying to figure out for myself and for my students. Um, yeah, again, teaching students, I think it's inspiring, really. Keeps me learning. What do you think?
Yeah, about finding joy in through music, that sense of discovery, even with an older piece of music that I've played for many years, or something, a piece, let's say, that I've taught over and over and over and over. Every person that I get a chance to work with brings a new perspective to the piece. So, on the flip side, I can always say, oh, I have this experience teaching this piece now. I can share these experiences playing, teaching the work. But I think I always learn something from every new experience, hearing how somebody plays it, or revising the way I think about how I teach it, because I'm working with a different kind of personality with their own different sets of strengths and weaknesses. So I find that very rejuvenating. Any piece that I've played before in the past, when I come back to it, I have new and different perspectives on both my physical and my mental outlook on life. So I will be bringing something new to that. And it's the same with our lives are so rich and full of different kinds of collaborations with all sorts of musicians. So we're constantly learning and growing. So I would say just how MingHuan was saying, she's inspired so much by the students and myself as well, very much. But also all sorts of musicians, even ones that we don't necessarily work with, but we just speak to and collaborate with. Are different sources, amazing resources now on the web, right? Just watching how somebody talks about music in interviews, master classes, or of course performances. All of those things kind of feed into us. I think where we can sometimes lose that sense of joy is if we are completely isolating ourselves and we're just practicing just for ourselves over and over and over and over. We don't have new inspiration, new ideas flowing through us, and it then becomes the power of our own negative voice, this voice of judgment and falling short. And
Mm-hmm.
that's can be crippling. But if we learn to, we have to acknowledge that voice, and that's the only voice in some ways that will inspire us to truly change. But if we don't learn to at times drop that voice and say, let's just embrace all aspects of music making and soak things in, again, we'll be crushed under the weight that we've placed upon our own shoulders.
That's really interesting. Thank you both. It sounds like you might recommend for students who might feel overwhelmed or have lost a little joy maybe to go out and collaborate and find friends or to go to concerts, even if it's not your instrument. Like we have the CSO so close. I know lots of pianists enjoy going and get inspired by other new experiences and new music. It's really great.
Absolutely, and it's finding new inspiration, and also I find that sometimes when we lose passion for music, it's, yes, could be boredom, and very often for conservatory students, is the pressure come with it.
Hmm.
You all remember that, when you at some point in your younger days that you've decided music is what you want, um, that you had that passion and for it and the desire for it. And gradually, when you're in the conservatory and suddenly things start changing, you start looking at your peers and how well they play, and you start looking at professions. So it's really not music that it stops us; it's the pressure, and then the
Hmm.
professional, pressure comes with it. So, from a longer, a bigger picture of what am I gonna do when after I graduate, and to, oh look, my studio mate is playing that, and I'm playing this, and all of these things, or to right before you go on stage, this is totally different, subject that we could focus on someday, like stage fright too, is that we focus on what if I lose the passage, what if I didn't nail it, what if I mess up something, and we all have that fear. I do too. And for me, I find to conquer that fear is to not necessarily to get rid of it. Like, okay, the more you're trying to push away, sometimes the more it comes back to you. It can be very stubborn. Like, no, no, it's like I just don't feel nervous. No, 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 I do feel nervous, do feel anxious. I can't push it away. Is to actually acknowledge it, to accept it. But my advice is to not let it take center stage. You see what I mean? I will tell my students can have that thoughts there, but move over just a little bit. It's still there, but what takes center stage is about music. I always find that technically I become cleaner or a little easier when I focus more on music. What the composer is trying to say, what I'm trying to say, and finding that passion and love, and to be able to tap into that when you're performing or just when you're practicing. So that really helps, I find, is that to feel the pressure, acknowledge it, that everybody feels it, and to, sometimes sit in it for a while. But I would say don't unpack and stay there, kind of just move over, and to be able to, sometimes it's the strength as well. And I would tell myself, yes, I can do it. And yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm worried. Yes, I feel insecure, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways, because I know if I make a mistake, if things didn't go well as much as I was hoping for, there's going to be another concert.
Hmm.
It's not the end of it. So,
Hmm. Yeah, that's really great. I feel like we care so much about everything when we're in school, especially like our juries, we have to pass our juries, we have to pass our recitals, we have to,
yes, sorry.
it's okay.
It's a chain
Um,
reaction.
yeah. um, I think we care so much about every individual thing that we forget that it will still be okay, even if we mess up one thing or miss a passage or, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that everyone in the audience is cheering for us. That's the best thing. I think one of my piano teachers told me that, like, no one there wants you to not do well. Everyone wants you to do well, and they'll be there for hugs or cheers or whatever after.
Well, absolutely, Caitlin. When I go to concerts, sometimes I think about that too. Exactly what you're saying. Like when I go to a concert, do I ever sit there and hoping or wondering, is that person gonna
Yeah.
mess up? Really, it doesn't come to my mind. It's more like, what is this? How is this person playing? What is this person trying to say? How the
Hmm.
musicality came across, right? I mean,
Even
it's
even if you look at this one aspect of music making that is something that we all tend to feel like is a necessary evil, auditions and
Hmm.
competitions, where there is judgment, there are stakes, and people advance and others don't. Even in those kinds of situations, we've sat on juries so many times, and as a judge, the last thing I'm thinking is I wonder who's going to mess this up, or I wonder who's going to bomb. Really, we always are wondering what we're going to be delighted by. We hope to be surprised by what somebody has to say, and
Hmm.
we hope to be moved. That truly is, I think, the attitude. We're even as judges cheering people on.
and also if something does happen on stage, let's say if some passage didn't go, very often for me it's more sympathy. It's like, oh, I'm sorry that didn't go because I get it. I get it. So um but I think, Caitlin, what you were saying about, people there to cheer you on, and I mean, being the directors of the two programs, and I am so proud to say, and I see more and more of that here at CCPA between the students,
Hmm.
and that means so much to us, and I can speak for my string program too. The amount of cheering, the support the students have for each other, it inspires me, and it's really touching. And I think for you guys who are doing all this, talking about health and wellness, and really this is part of that movement, is that people are here supporting each other. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's wonderful. It really is.
Sometimes, you know, within a certain community or culture, environment, whatever, if as a young musician you feel like your work is not being recognized by others. So, for example, you play and so these people don't give you the kind of external support that you would like because we pour our heart and soul into it. In these moments, we give everything, but for an audience, it's so fleeting. It's just a few minutes that pass by and here's somebody else performing. That can, again, feel kind of crippling. I always feel like in these situations, what can you do? What can we do to make a difference within this environment? Is not that we're asking for others to respond to us, but we give to others, right? So if you are more
Yeah.
giving and pull somebody aside and say, "Hey, I really enjoyed what what you did with your, in the development section. I really loved how you treated that second theme. It just really was gripping, rather than good job, bravo, yay, clap, which is great and it's fine. But just to kind of say, hey, I was listening to what you had to say. This improved so much since I last heard you. All these little things. It's like, we can take those steps ourselves, and sometimes that can transfer over to our colleagues if we feel like it's lacking. And sometimes we
Hmm.
get a lot of that already. Just kind of go with it in that cycle and roll with it, and maybe pick out the person who seems to be a little more alone within the class and not getting enough of that kind of feedback, and extend it to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to do a performance anxiety specific version of this sometime because I feel like everyone struggles with it and we all do our best, but there's just no getting out of it, I
Yep.
think. Yeah. You talked about this a little bit earlier, but I wonder if you could talk more about this concept of work-life balance and how do you leave work at work and life at home and and not let say a bad performance get down on you for too long or just mentally take a rest when you need it.
Wow. Um,
That's a big question.
it's a good
Sorry.
question. I mean,
I
you
feel
you
like
go first.
I feel like the pandemic in some ways obliterated some of those boundaries because everybody was at home and there was everything spilled
Mhm.
over, right?
Mhm.
It's harder to say I'm done my day, I have to get home because you're at home already. And so everything was spilling into the evenings or into the weekends, first thing in the morning. And I mean, that was maybe a trend that we had already seen happening, but now it's everywhere. And it's kind of almost expected that, teachers, colleagues, friends will reach out after hours and you need to respond. And that, again, can be overwhelming. So the whole idea of kind of dividing up the day, I'm done at 5 p.m. It's nice if we can do that occasionally, but it's hard, and there are times when it kind of bleed over. And but I will say this: I feel like whether you have 5 hours at the end of the day, you know, my life is work 9 to 5 and then it's free. Whether you have that, or if your work is throughout the whole day, but you can carve out these little moments off throughout the day for yourself, as long as you have enough of that, you know. And so it's like as Ming was saying, you take little walks, take little breaks, but it could also mean taking small breaks when you're practicing,
Mm-hmm.
or when you're working on something, when you feel like it's a certain rep that you're in or a certain dead end, find some new inspiration. Maybe jump to another piece. Maybe change, flip the chapter and do something completely different, and then come back to the task at hand. I find all these little things are essential for both mental health as well as physical health because we do need to take more breaks in general. I think the days of, when I was a student, it was you work as hard as possible by any means necessary. No excuses are accepted. Right now, we have to take, I think, much more care of ourselves because it's 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 too late if you're already in pain, or if you've experienced like some kind of crash. It's too late. So you want to preempt that and be proactive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think work and life balance, it's honest speaking, I do feel that there is a gender difference, to be honest. And I do want to address that, even myself, if I see, let's say, a man who is very successful working and have a family, and I would still be curious about, hey, how do you balance that? But as a woman, I'm more curious. And why is that? Just because, I'm a mother. We have 9-year-old twins, and it's just, I feel that as a mother, I just, Winston is fantastic with the kids. I mean, he's just such an involved dad. He has to be, just because we both, work hard. But at the same time, I do feel that there's more like inner pull, right, from me with the kids, and I can't help it. It's just it's just, let's say, if I don't spend enough time with the kids, I don't feel good. I feel guilty, and I miss them, and I want to hold them, I want to talk with them, so and then at the same time, I know that music has always been my passion. So I want to do well. I want to do well for myself. I want to do well for my kids. I wanted my daughter to see that mommy is going after her passion, and she, you know, um, is not just giving her life up. And so because of that, and I wanted my son to see that too, and I have a very supportive husband, and so it's more of a, I guess, modern way of living, and I don't know, but what I can tell you is this: is that um, there could be a balance for women to, you know, work very hard at her job and still be a very involved mother and wife. But you probably can't do everything at the same time, if that makes any sense. For instance, I'm not going to be home and doing emails and then practicing and taking care of my kids at the same time. It's just it doesn't work very well for me. Sometimes I have to allow myself to say, Ethan and Lily are there on tablets for a little while mommy is getting some work done. But what I make sure that I skip is real check-ins with them, like emotional check-ins. We're not talking about let's just hang out, like, hey, how was your day? But really know how they're doing. So ask about their day in detail and trying to get to know their friendships, not just achievement based. And I think that where we have achieved so much in our lives, very easily would become achievement based. I mean, the kids are, Ethan plays cello, Lily plays violin, and but we want that to be a musical language that we share in the house, that it creates a lot of joy rather than a lot of just discipline and competition, you know? And so if I know that I'm doing that with my kids, it doesn't have to take hours, but check in. How are they doing? I know everything they're going through in terms of emotionally. I feel that if they feel the care and the love that we have for them, really feel it, that they're not alone, that we'll drop everything for them anytime, then we don't necessarily have to spend every single minute with them because they're doing their homework, they're practicing too, they have life too. We don't want to be helicopter parents. so and now we kind of located ourselves now in South Loop, and so we're really walking distance from school and walking distance from their school as well. So they come back at 2:30 in the afternoon. So we feel like we're in the house all the time. I see them more than I ever did, I feel. um, but to just to conclude, I said there is balance. It's not an easy balance. There are days when I feel very, very tired. I'm not gonna lie, very tired, and I feel like I can just like crawl. I was like, I'm gonna crawl into bed now. That's how tired I get. Sometimes I feel like, oh, my joints hurt. Like, oh my gosh, I had such a emotional packed and physically packed day. But in the end, I think then you're saying, how do you do it? And what it's I guess I remember my parents used to tell me that, Minghuan, always have passion for life, no matter how hard it gets. No matter how hard life is, we always want to be here, you know, and to live its best, I would say. So, um, I guess being grateful. Every day I'm grateful, really sincerely. I feel that, oh my gosh, I'm a musician, I'm doing what I love, and I have a job, and I have a beautiful family. I'm grateful. There's not a single day I take it for granted. And what can I do to keep going? And so balance is hard. There are days when you feel off balance, when you feel like, oh shoot, if I turn my computer around, guys, my kitchen is a mess right now. But that's something that I'm willing to let go for now. My husband helps me, but there's certain things I do let go, and then I'll come to it when it's time. um, but what I don't let go is check-ins with my kids and check-ins with my students in my work. And so then you kind of find priorities in life, you know.
I've come across certain situations throughout the last few years where, let's say, okay, there's a Saturday coming up, and I feel like I could really use that Saturday to practice for a big concerto or some competition. I mean, not competition, some concert that's coming up. I don't do competitions anymore, but but there's something coming up that is packed full of pressure. And if, let's say, one of our kids gets invited to a birthday party or something like that, I would always choose the birthday party because I think it's a chance to bond and it's a chance for them to have that experience. If it means I lose 4 hours of practicing, I'd rather have that and find a little bit more balance within our family life and then within my own life as well. And sure, I could have probably used those 4 hours, but you can also find an hour here, an hour here, an hour there, and make up for it in a different way and feel somewhat kind of recharged by it. But I guess it's important to not go into that weekend thinking I'm losing these hours and the whole time full of that regret, because then you're not really enjoying the present and the whole time you're lamenting the fact that you lost those hours, right? If you can be in that moment and enjoy that quality time, whether it's with kids or whether it's with friends or something that's come up that's disrupted your grand plan of what you need to do. If you're genuinely curious and you want to enjoy it, then you've swung this direction, you'll swing right back.
Yeah, I can tell you guys that we don't fight for those birthday parties. He takes them. I'm okay with not going to those birthday parties, but um, yeah. So we find our own role in life. What is. But I think it's important to surround yourself with this, supportive environment. In our case, it's marriage, and we support each other, we understand each other, and then there's also, friend support, maybe more in your age, that you have a good supportive circle of friends, who gives you positive energy, who you can talk to, can lean on, your family, and We have a puppy. He's therapeutic for us. He was just on my lap when we started the session. He jumped off, and we love him. And so, and also, I have little tricks that I do during the day. For instance, I have this app called Calm app. I'm sure many of you guys already know that app. It's they have like all kinds of 10-15 minutes meditations and talking about anxieties, talking about sleeping habits, and sleep stories before you go to bed. I have that app, and I go onto it almost daily. I would say, and I would meditate for 10 minutes, and sometimes I would actually drift off off to a nap. And then cat naps for me, it's great. And I can just doze off for a few minutes and come back and I keep going. If I don't have that nap for a few minutes, and the rest of the day I'm tired. So little things like, would a cup of coffee pick you up in the afternoon? So little things you can do to see what keeps you going. I think the little rewards, and maybe instead of practicing by yourself, practice buddies. I used to do that, when I was your age, and I would go into the conservatories with a couple friends, and we'll say, hey, let's practice an hour, and after that, let's go have coffee. And let's go get bubble tea afterwards, and or just check in, with each other and talk. And so you guys, it's such a great uh, place in downtown Chicago. I know there are a lot of fun places. Go meet in the practice rooms for a little bit, and then go out and do something and come back and practice more. So having someone there to share, you don't feel as alone. And the thing about big cities is that you have to really make a point of making those things happen. Smaller campus and people around. In the big cities, when they're going about their own lives, and so, but do reach out to your friends. Set appointment, practice together, go get coffee together, and so keep building up the community.
That's really great. I feel like I learned so much in just the last 10 minutes. Um, I think we've covered all my big questions, but is there anything last minute advice you'd like to give to students?
Yeah, something about how busy you all are with managing this. In some ways, it's this ever escalating amount of work and pressures that we feel from all facets of society. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier on about giving yourself enough kind of positive affirmations of what it is that you do. It's just that little voice, if you get into the habit of claiming small little victories everywhere. Like, good for you for sending that email. Good for you for taking the time to look at that passage, which you've always kind of pushed off to the side. Just these little bite-sized manageable goals. The goal could be as simple as just one thought, and to execute that goal could literally be less than a minute. But you have enough of those, and it starts to give you this sense of satisfaction because you checked off a box, and then you can start riding on that wave of accomplishment because everything is going your way because all these little tasks are very manageable. But if you look at your day and think this is unreasonable, there's no way I can handle all of this stuff, or this piece is so difficult, I don't know where to get started, you can set the goal as small as you want. Even if you only have 2 minutes free between things, set a goal, accomplish it, and you can feel good about yourselves. So doing that out of habit allows you to kind of override that feeling of dread, the feeling of falling short, the feeling of not having enough time. Because all of these little positive affirmations will then start to kind of pick up steam, and in some ways almost have a kind of a self-generating quality, right? Because after that, you get the energy to take care of another little thing.
Mm-hmm. For me, I would just say that, prioritize health and wellness. It is the most important, more than even music. If you think about, if you don't have physical health, if you're hurt, you can't play. If you're not in the right mental state, if you're so depressed and so anxious and you feel paralyzed, and you can't play, and but what's amazing about it, I want to repeat again, it's what you guys are doing. You are starting this movement, you're making people aware of how important it is, because when you think about physical health. And you know, you don't necessarily need to go to the gym. There's so many apps and so many little things you can do, even from YouTube at home. You can just start. And about healthy eating, we have, you know, so much information. And then mental health, and it's same thing. The school provides so much help, right? And this, you remember in the old days, mental health, there's such a stigma around it. We don't talk about mental health, right? Nobody wants to say that I'm going to see a therapist, right? My therapist said, you know, and I remember when I was young, it's like nobody admitted that, like something wrong with you if you're weak to see a therapist. I am so relieved and so encouraged when my students come up to me to say that, hey, you know, I've been getting help. You know, I've been seeing a therapist, and I'm seeing a psychologist, and I think that that's the start is we talk about it, you know, and we're getting help, and there's resources that we can get help from. And I think once we address it, you know, we accept how important it is, then we can move forward, right? And another advice, final advice, is to be grateful, you know. And I think that it really is. I mean, you know, after COVID, it's been 2 years of it, you know, and also right now the war in Ukraine, you know, we're all so many ways so disturbed. It's been a hard few years, you know. As hard as it is, you know, I'm feeding my kids in dinner, and I see them having their fruits and their yogurt and you know, and their chocolate at the end of the meal, and I think about these kids in Ukraine. I do. I think about, you know, how they escaped and what would that be like, that they have to go to a different country and start with nothing and leaving their husbands and fathers behind because they're fighting, knowing or not knowing if the kids will ever see the dad again, you know, and in terms of COVID and how many people that we lost. And so my heart goes out. At the same time, I look at my life, I'm grateful, I'm thankful every day. So if I'm a little tired, I get a little bit more sleep, and I'm burned out, I rest a little bit, and I keep going. I love what I do. And so I think that, you know, having that perspective, you know, also it's so important, you know, just to know that no matter how hard it is, we get it good here. Really, a lot of good things here that is happening. And like what your guys are doing, you know, for the students. And so we want to thank you for having us today, you know, and we really enjoy talking with you. Caitlin, you're doing wonderfully as a host. And
Thank you.
thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much. I think we'll be posting this on YouTube so students can see it. So thank you so much for sharing your advice and be willing to put it out there.
You're
Sure,
very
thanks.
welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, and keep up the great work you're doing at Cal.
Thank you.
So much.